Yeah, just so exciting with the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship coming back and everything. I understand that the crowdfunding goals were reached for season two, which that's always great to see. I guess it shows a level of enthusiasm coming off of that first season for sure. So love that.
Yeah, actually, we'll comment about that because when I was organizing the first crowdfunding, not a lot of people donated. And initially, I thought like, why are people not, supporting this? And when I still pulled off, I threw like 20 grand of my own savings just to make it happen, nevertheless. And I pulled it off. I made it happen. I put it on YouTube. Initially, I was like, everybody's just gonna wait for this so much. They're gonna enjoy this so much. And the views for the first episode, they're like barely there. I'm like, this is epic, guys. Why is no one watching? And then I realized no one really initially understood what is being planned. Like I made trailers, I made some introductions, but nobody expected it to be, I quote the viewers, this good. And eventually when people started to catch up and they saw the first episode, they're like, oh my God, this is like brilliant. They really loved it. And then from the second episode, their views started skyrocketing. Everything was good. And then when the first season ended, people now knew what to expect. And by the time I said that the second crowdfunding is going to happen, we pretty quickly reached the goal, overpassed it, and it was very different. So it was nice to see that people fell in love with the show, even though initially they were confused.
Yeah, and I understand Jeff Phillips let you know pretty quickly that the facility for season one that the filming took place in was set to be demolished by year's end. So it's kind of like, oh, we got to get into this second season and kind of get things going. So great, the quick turnaround happened. Be curious to get some insights into all of that because it would seem like a hectic kind of scenario for some people.
Yeah, so basically, we're on sort of borrowed time there. Like we're still there at the moment, but it was purchased by developers. So it's a really big facility on an acreage, as you saw from all the footage. And we were told that, yeah, we had to be out by the end of the year. So that's why I sort of pushed it forward. And then now we're still there, and it looks like we're going to continue to be there. They're just going to keep extending our lease and things like that, fortunately. But at the time, we were told we're out, no questions asked, and just fortune sort of fell in our favor. We were able to stay a little bit longer.
I'll add something to that as well. For my end, the editing for the first season, it was really, really difficult because I gave myself way too short of a deadline and I was the main editor behind it. So like in a week or 2 weeks, I was like editing from like 10 a.m. to like 2 a.m. essentially, like just the whole day. I even didn't cook. I ordered these meals that are pre-made. So I just quickly eat and I continue. I am not even I don't even understand myself how I was able to do it, but I was burnt out like really bad at the end of it. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna take a few months off, celebrate this, chill. And then a couple of weeks before season one is published, Jeff Phillips writes to me like, "Hey, the facility is going to get demolished, and we need to like do another season fast." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't even have a break." So as soon as the last episode of season one hit YouTube, it was already announced that there's the crowdfunding, and then right away I started, and obviously Jeff Phillips as well started preparing for the second season. So it was pretty crazy, but again, we managed to do it. We pulled it off, so I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, and some great competitors this season. Jesse Enkamp, I was excited to see. Definitely a recognizable name for sure. Karate black belt and multiple time champion and everything like that. I mean, curious to, get your thoughts on being able to, showcase karate in this kind of a medium because it's a very unique show setup as people will come to find and whatnot checking out the show.
Yeah, so originally I was supposed to be in the first season actually, but due to some personal matters, I couldn't make it. So that's why I was especially excited to be part of the second season now. But actually, already in the first season, Sensei Seth was a great representative of karate. So he made us all very proud when he got a second place, I believe. So my job was basically just to try to, achieve at least some kind of success because he did so well, and I knew that the bar was already very high. But I wanted to also showcase more of the like traditional side of karate because he does more of a sports oriented karate, a lot of flashy high kicks and cool stuff like that. But there were also like joint locks and takedowns and stuff that most modern sports oriented karate people don't really practice a lot. So that was the kind of stuff that I really wanted to showcase.
Yeah, and someone else that brings a karate background into the show is Natan Levy, who also, really showcases his skills inside of the UFC octagon. Just really cool to, see you involved in a show like this also, because I was seeing an interview you did where you were like, oh, sometimes I get put in these challenges that are almost impossible. And you were good about not spoiling certain details of said challenges. Like, I guess, how did you come to be a part of the show, and what was the whole experience like for you, man?
First of all, how's it going, guys? Sorry, I was on the other link. Um, it's really cool. I think obviously I knew Rokas. I follow his channel. Same thing, with Jesse, Jordan, and all the guys on the show. I like their channel even before. And one day I see him posting a picture of them all geared up in shields and whatnot, like in Iron Man suits, and ready for some challenges. And I said, that looks cool. And, I think a couple of months after, Ruckus already sent me, wrote me and invited me on the show, which I think is awesome. And especially after I started watching it, I was, really into it. So for me, life is about challenges. This is why I do MMA, because of, I want to challenge myself and grow as a martial artist. And that's another great way to do it, on top of being fun and meeting great people and having a kick-ass week.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess speaking to the point of the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship, I feel like a lot of rhetoric around jiu-jitsu positions it as like such a great discipline for self-defense in like a street sort of scenario or things of that persuasion. And I guess kind of in that vein, wanted to, put the focus on Jordan here, just representing high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in this situation. Like, how did you come to be involved in this show? I mean, obviously you have experience in other disciplines like Muay Thai and amateur MMA from what I was seeing, but really representing BJJ here. So like, how did everything come about for you, and just what were your thoughts on the overall experience?
Jordan, I think we don't hear your microphone, I believe. That's not me only, right?
I can't
Yeah, I
hear
can't
him.
hear you.
Is there a chat? Tell him he's muted.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like I saw that there was the first season and I wanted to do that. It's like I saw it before it was being filmed that like it was happening and I wanted to do it. And I asked Rokas if I could do it. But I guess I don't know, maybe I wasn't like popular enough to be able to do it. So like yeah, there's other guys ahead of me and that was fine. Like but yeah, it was when I saw season 2 was coming out, I asked Rokas if I could do it and he said yes. I was super happy about that. And yeah, like I had a great time. It was a ton of fun. And I think it was cool to showcase jujitsu because people talk shit on my channel all the time. They're like, "Oh, jujitsu doesn't work for self-defense and stuff like that." But I'm like, first off, I don't care because I do it for fun. But it is cool to be able to use it for self-defense. But yeah, they're so silly. They're trying to get under my skin or whatever. But they say it all the time. So I think it's cool to yeah, show them that it works. And that was kind of my game plan, to like use jujitsu as much as possible and not strike as much as possible. But then as time went on, I was like, shit, yeah, I should probably use some striking here because that would probably be helpful instead of just trying to, control people, use grappling. So yeah, I think maybe my perspective changed too about self-defense, like during the whole thing. I kind of realized that I don't know, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was in terms of self-defense, just because there's so many variables that can happen. And like things like, you think that you can de-escalate, but they don't want to, like they're ready to fight, or like you just like like paying attention to what's going on. I think I didn't do a good job always. Like I was too like trusting of like the I don't know, like the bad guys, I guess, like giving me water. I drank the water. Sorry, I don't know. That's a spoiler for next episode. But yeah, my bad.
You can no, go ahead. I think that's fine because that probably will be released by the time this is out. So
Yeah, so like I know people in the comments are gonna like talk shit about that, like, oh, what an idiot, he drank the water, at a bar, like why would anyone do that? But it's like it's a lot easier said than done. Like hindsight's 2020, right? Like so many of these things I felt like after, like, oh my God, I should have realized not to do that or to do this, do that. But yeah, it's totally different when you're in the scenario and there's so much pressure because you only have one shot and you want to win which is exactly like self-defense. Like you only have one shot. And like a lot of times, like if you zig when you should have zagged, things can go really horribly wrong. So I think it just shows you, even though your fighting skills are a high level, it doesn't always translate to self-defense because it's just different. It helps a lot for sure, but it's not like it's some, yeah, I don't know, like foolproof like thing. Like, anything can happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously you compete a fair bit and have competed in BJJ, but so much of what you do as a content creator with your channel, and it's kind of interesting how timing works. Sometimes I like pretty recently discovered your channel, and then this interview request came my way, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny how that works out. But then also teaching at your school, Limitless Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing in Trenton, Ontario. Shout out to Ontario as well. But just cool. I mean, in that context, like you teach people so much, and to be able to showcase it live yourself in this kind of context must have also been exciting too, I would think.
Yeah, big time. And just it was just fun for myself too to be in these scenarios because I've never been in these scenarios before. And yeah, it was a good variety and good challenge. That's what I liked a lot. And yeah, there's a couple things I did in the show, which I think will create a lot of I don't know, controversy or interest, I guess, a lot of talk. I'm excited for people to see it because yeah, people they have misconceptions about jiu-jitsu sometimes. And yeah, I don't know. I had some interesting strategies. I'm looking forward to seeing what people say.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess just directing this next question to Jeff Phillips, just because the hosting duties involved in the show and this being the second season, without like divulging specifics of things that happened, like what differences did you see in, I guess, just like the general methodology of the show and just how everything ran with the second season as compared to the first?
So what I really liked about season 2 as opposed to 1 is season 1, everyone was very friendly. They were all a big group of friends, and that kind of detracts a little bit. They weren't trying to hurt each other. And I'm not saying they were this time, but there was a lot more, I guess, mongrel, to use an Australian term. Like people were actually out to win. They wanted to win a whole lot more, whereas season 1 was a lot friendlier. And that sort of gave a much truer reflection of what self-defense is. Just as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator a little bit, it changes everything. And these guys had their foot on the accelerator a whole lot more in season 2. And that to me was just made a huge difference. And it's something that, yeah, I want to push for in the future, like give incentives for people to come out and, really try and win. Like, I remember picking Jordan up from the airport and how I appreciated his honesty and how he was just like, I'm here to win, and um, I like that. I like that attitude, and the no more Mr. Nice Guy and all that kind of thing. I just thought, yeah, that just sealed the deal for me. Yeah.
And I guess just speaking to that shift in temperament, because I understand that Natan Levy checked out the first season and seemed to be really into it. There's such like a culture of, I guess, just, game planning or even like observing people within MMA culture and really martial arts culture in general. But just with Jeff Chan returning to the show as the reigning champion of Ultimate Self-Defense Championship, like, was there a certain excitement watching the show in the context of like, oh, I'd like to be in this kind of framework and maybe, see how I would do against like Jeff Chan or any of the field of competitors that there are?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Different.
On the show, I think like the competitive side was different than last season. I still enjoy watching last season because I show it to people all the time, and I'm like, this is so much fun. And I feel like our season is just more like this is a competition. And when I saw Jordan on that first episode that's already been released, run for his life, and like how, yeah, like he's running for his life. It sounds like defensive, but like we're in a competition, so he's running to win. Basically, he's trying to win with every means necessary. Sorry, do you guys hear my cat
No, you're good.
screaming?
No worries.
So like that lit a fire in me. I was like, okay, it's not the same season. I'm not going to be in season number 1. I'm going to be in season number 2. And this guy is there, Jeff Chan. Jesse also came to win. Everybody came to win. So it was a different thing. But we still had fun and friendships and everything. But it was very competitive.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, I guess even for people who haven't checked out the show yet. I mean, the first full season is available on YouTube from what I'm seeing. And as you said, the first episode of this next season has just premiered a couple days ago as of this recording. So yeah, definitely love to see that. And I think it's like in such interesting environments that these things take place. Like I've seen some on the beach, and I mean, people fighting in buses and stuff like that, like in warehouses. I mean, there's a lot of interesting scenarios and framework. There's like mock weapons involved and stuff like that. So just, yeah, a lot going on. I'm very excited to, I guess, see some of these environments in season 2 and everything.
I'll add to that a little bit, where I mentioned that season 1, our budget was very limited, and it essentially was like a testing rabbit. It was the first time we're like, let's try to figure this out. And I was very lucky that Jeff Phillips have done similar championships to his students, which was one of the inspirations for the show. But it was still not the same scale, or it wasn't filmed, and there were so many things which could have went wrong, but luckily didn't. But then season 1 turned out really well, I believe, but it was still just kind of scrapped together. But for season 2, we're like, okay, we learned from the lessons from season 1, and how can we improve upon them? How can we deliver even more lessons for people? Because I actually stole this term from Jesse Enkamp. He calls some of his content edutainment, where it's education with entertainment mixed. And that's part of the idea for the show, that whoever watches it, they have fun, but either consciously or subconsciously, they learn. Like Jordan said, you watch other people do something and you're like, hey, I would do that as well now. The next time I would be in that situation because I saw this guy doing it. So that was one of the goals in season 2, but also it's maybe a silly comparison, but I was thinking about Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, or Aliens. I was like, okay, the first ones were great, but the second one just made things even better. Like it brought it to the next level, and that was one of our aims. Like season 1 is great, but let's make season 2 even like bigger, better, and more, bring more variety. And I think everyone together, and Jeff Phillips with the challenges themselves and ideas, I think, yeah, it became a reality.
Yeah, and that is such a thing. I mean, you hear a lot about that in like a music context, but it really does apply to a lot of entertainment mediums. That idea of the sophomore slump and trying to avoid that. And I think the Terminator reference is a good one because that's kind of anomalous in a certain sense. And as far as like, oh, the sequel's actually arguably even better than the first one, or at the very least, it wasn't like any kind of defined letdown. And I think even with like another reality show context, like say even The Ultimate Fighter, like I recall a lot of people kind of looking at that second season as not bad per se, but almost like it didn't quite live up to, the first season. So I guess like what facets of, I guess, the whole process were at play to like, I guess, ensure or try to do your best to ensure that this second season would be, received favorably and to be, I guess, aligned in a certain way to kind of position it like that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree very much. And I was thinking about the same thing just days ago, just because I'm a fan of movies and I watch movie reviews and just video essays. And I came to that same idea that, well, actually, it's so rare that the season 2 of a show, even reality show or scripted show or movies, it's very rare that it's better. And obviously, that's a lot of pressure because ideally we're going to make more seasons. But then it's like, okay, well, we managed to pull it off this time. A lot of people, at least in the comments, are like, whoa, this is even better, which is the best compliment we can receive. But it's a lot of pressure too. It's like, okay, we just have to keep that upward trend going. So we'll do our best.
And I guess derivative of that idea of, listening to feedback from that first season, I think it's interesting that there's like a quote unquote regular guy. I think that was kind of the operative phrasing I was seeing in a lot of different posts, just with, Craig Hunter being involved. I think it's like a good thing for people who aren't even, I guess, regularly practicing martial artists to see that like regular guy kind of interfacing. Like, I guess in a way, it kind of reminds me of that Pros versus Joes show that they used to have back in the day, just in that context of interfacing like an active, martial artist and someone who's like so established in their respective disciplines against someone who's just kind of like a regular lad and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. Like, how did Craig specifically kind of get involved in terms of like being in that spot?
Do you want me to field this one?
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, Kev, the basketball player, he pulled out, I think about 2 weeks prior, and we gave him a little bit of time to get his x-rays and things together before he made a commitment. And there was a lot of thought involved. I'm just thinking, wow, last minute, who can we get, you know? And I just happened to, I don't know, like I've known Craig for a while. He's trained at my gym on and off for about 10 years. But when I say 10 years, it's been like a week on, a month off, a week on. Like he hadn't done a whole lot. He's the kind of guy, he'd get home from work, have a beer, and he wouldn't get off the couch. And I just, the idea popped up. I'm not sure where, maybe I saw him on Facebook and I just thought, oh, he'll be perfect. You know, he's just got the persona. He's got charisma. He's very Australian. He's not putting that on. And I think the international audience would appreciate that, as well as the Australian audience, because some of the mannerisms and things he does, you know, even in the comments, you can see people are all enjoying him being there. And I just think, yeah, it was, I don't want to say it's a blessing in disguise, because I don't want to say that about Kevin, but Craig just, yeah, it was a great addition, I think.
And I mean, that's another component, I guess, just, touching on the authentic Aussie kind of dynamic. It seems like a very, I guess, like widespread show in terms of like a global kind of context, just with Ranton being a Shaolin disciple and just, getting that kind of audience too and stuff like that. So just love to see it. It seems like it's kind of methodical in that sort of sense, just in terms of having the various global tendrils to it with the participants and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was great because people were from all over the world, you know, different parts of the world. And we had that commonality of fighting. And that's all we needed. You know, everyone got along so well. There were a few bromances that seemed to blossom throughout the season. And yeah, it was just great. It was good having people from such different perspectives, and we all came together, and it worked. In my opinion, it worked.
Also, to add something, it's a very conscious reason that also I believe Jeff Phillips pitched that idea to have the world and zoom into where the people are. But it was a very conscious decision to do that in episode 1 of the second season, where people would really see, okay, these guys are really from the whole globe. So they're representing, they came up from different backgrounds, they came in different environments. They're kind of representing their environment, not only their martial art. And also, a lot of martial arts practitioners are, I believe, a bit in the best way, say, geeks, including myself. They're interested in the various cultures like pop media and films, and myself included. And some people did notice that, like, the scrolls that we send, it was a bit gimmicky, but the idea was it's like a little bit like Mortal Kombat becoming real, or like Tekken. It's like, well, this is real, but we're doing something that people fantasized about for many years. And UFC kind of did something similar, but no one ever did that with self-defense. And we wanted to make sure that that's portrayed and that's recognized, that these guys are really coming to represent themselves from across the whole globe. And also, I'm very appreciative of everyone accepting to do that, because Australia is one of the furthest points for pretty much everyone in the world. And so it was long flights, big jet lags, but everyone agreed to do it. Everyone took the time off to do it. So I really appreciate it.
And I guess that would probably stand out as like I would think, a distinct difference from the first season as well, because I was seeing some backgrounding videos heading into the first season, and it seemed like a lot of people didn't even know that it was legit necessarily. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I've got a plane ticket. Like, this is actually happening. Like, I guess there's like a precedent that's been set now where, people, I guess, would be like, oh, okay, like, let's go. This is like an established entity now. Like, I want to be a part of this, etc.
Very true. It was funny because there was that story with Icy Mike from season 1 where I asked him if he will participate, and he was like, okay, and he wrote back in a message. And then a few months later, I buy him a ticket, I send him the ticket, and I tell him, like, okay, so let's do this. And he's like, wait, this is really happening? I'm like, yes. And so it turns out he told his wife that he's coming, and she agreed. But then he comes back a few months later and tells the same thing, and she's like, you're really going there? He's like, yeah, you agreed. And the wife explains that I agreed because I thought it's never going to happen. Turns out Mike was the same way. He agreed because he thought this is never going to take off. But yeah, so for season 1, it was I relied on friendships and connections I developed over years to have people accept. So they accepted. It was like they recognized it's weird. I don't know what I'm getting into, but I like Rokas. I'm gonna do it. But for season 2, now that we had somewhat of a profile, it was easier to convince new participants, because they saw, oh, actually this looks fun, or actually I want to challenge myself. Especially Ranton, who's unfortunately not with us here right now, but but he loved the show as a fan essentially, and that's where I realized, hey, I can actually get him on board because everybody would love to see a Shaolin disciple participate. And then I had to do a lot of convincing because he's not an experienced fighter, so he really wanted to do it, but he also was afraid that he's going to get his ass kicked. I won't reveal what's going to happen, but the fact that the show was there and the way it was represented, it made him make the decision to join. Otherwise, he wouldn't have joined.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Jordan was kind of mentioning earlier how there was certain almost like revelatory components that the show brought, like, oh, I guess I didn't really factor this into my equation as much. I guess I figured I'd kind of pose a similar question to Jesse as well as Natan thereafter. Like, did you have any similar revelatory kind of moments or takeaways from participating in the show in a similar vein?
I would have to say that my main takeaway was focus less on self-defense and more on self-offense. I mean, sometimes there's a saying like attack is the best defense, right? And this is something that I gradually discovered throughout the challenges, that instead of focusing on just defending, there comes a point where you have to also do more attacking to actually stop the attack instead of just waiting for the time limit or the referee. And I don't think I took this seriously in the beginning. I was a little bit too cautious. And I think the same was true with Natan. And you can see that in the first episode. So I think, that's something perhaps many of us had to learn the hard way, but some of us learned that faster than others. I don't want to give any spoilers, but that was my main takeaway.
Jesse going from Miyagi-Do to Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly.
Time to attack, brother. I think, we all not only came to compete, but I think at some point, like, it was also kind of like a lab, because we were trying, with our skin in the game, we were trying techniques, right? We were trying martial arts. Like, I feel like I represent karate in MMA, and on the show I was the MMA guy. But there's different techniques, different moves. Maybe it works in the ring, but not in the street. Maybe it works only on the mats. So I think a big part of it was like as far as like seeing the techniques that you didn't think would work actually work, which created some insane moments. And just seeing, we were like, we were not in the room when people were competing. Only like in a few missions, when you were done, you could watch, and you'd see what people are doing before before we could watch any episode. It was like amazing. How didn't I think of this, right? Oh my God, my chances of winning are going down the way this guy is performing. So it just, I feel like I learned a lot from the show, from watching the other guys, and from just putting myself to the test, which is why I came on the show to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. And it is such an interesting test for sure, because I feel like everyone has that level of respect for martial arts, but there's always that general curiosity of like, how would this all play out in like a free-for-all, self-defense minded kind of context? And just really appreciate all of you making the time to talk as season 2 continues to unfurl, just a couple days after that first episode of the new season dropping. And also for people who aren't familiar with the show and want to get right into Ultimate Self-Defense Championship, that full first season is available on YouTube, and new episodes from this season will be dropping every Sunday. So just really appreciate all of you for making the time and everything. Some great insights given by all, and just also hope all of you enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for joining the show on Bowks Talking Bouts, and looking forward to seeing more episodes unfold here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
guys.
having
Good to
us.
see you all.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Bye.